Group's webinar. So we hold it monthly, and we're really happy that you can join us today, this afternoon. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, but I'm pretty sure most of you do know, the Nature Society Singapore is basically a non-profit organization which has two missions of promoting nature appreciation as well as conservation in Singapore and the surrounding regions. So yeah, with that, I'll hand, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Kathy, and I'm going to hand the time now over to our MCG chair, Kayao, who's going to be our moderator for the talk this afternoon as well. Sorry, Kayao, I think you need to unmute yourself. Sorry, Kayao, I think you need to unmute yourself. Can you hear us?
Yep. Can you hear me now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kayao. I'm the current chairman for the Marine Conservation Group of the Nature Society. I'd like to welcome everybody. Today we are very honored to have three great friends of nature. We have Mr. Leong Kok Peng, who was a former chairman of the MCG as well. He's a chemical engineer by training. So he worked quite a number of years in the petrochemical industry and later became an outdoor educator. In the Marine Conservation Group, he was the project leader for the NSS publication, the Singapore Waters. So yeah, I think some of you will be familiar with that book. He was quite instrumental to, I don't know if anyone of you can remember, but during the 90s, there was the reclamation of Air Chawan. So he was one of the coordinator to do the rescue project of all the coral reefs there. So yeah, if we have the chance, maybe we'll ask him to talk a little bit more on that in some of our later webinars. With us.
Yeah, can you help me? I don't know what's happening.
Keng Soon, is it?
I don't know. I can't see myself. I can't see anybody. I just see people's names.
Keng Soon, if you can, you try to move your cursor to the bottom left of your screen.
Bottom left.
What?
I don't know what happened. I can't get any bloody picture.
Yeah, I think we got your image already. Your video feed is on, Keng Soon.
Really?
Yeah, it may be a connection issue.
Don't know.
Yeah, we see you now.
But I can only see one little small face at the bottom. Your face.
Yeah. Yeah, Keng Soon. Keng Soon, we can see you now. Right. So a little bit on Keng Soon.
I don't know how to share screen.
Keng Soon, this is Felicia here. Kathy is sharing the screen at the moment, so you might not be able to see yourself because everybody is looking at Kathy's screen, which is the poster. So don't worry, Kaya is just doing the introduction before we begin, and then the screen will
Okay, just carry on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Huh?
I can't see anybody.
Yeah, Keng Soon is born in the 1940s. So he was a very, very active scout. So he traveled all over Singapore. So he knows our coastline really, really well. And he does a lot of sailing. And of course, he also owns a catamaran boat to sail around. Keng Soon by training is an architect. Right? So he started this organization called SPUR in 1965. And he was the president of the Singapore Institute of Architects, and was awarded the SIA Gold Medalist in 2010. Currently, he's the adjunct professor at NUS Architecture Faculty. And yeah. Ezra, our third speaker, first and foremost, he's my classmate since like secondary school. So we actually had quite a lot of interactions, even through our university days. Right. So Ezra grew up in the East Coast, around Teluk Kurau, Kembangan area. He was telling me stories of last time, when he was younger, about Bedok area, and so he's very, very familiar with the changes in the coastline around that area, Tanah Merah, Bedok area. He enjoys kayaking, sailing, generally any outdoor activities. He's the person to go to actually. So like I mentioned, we were classmates in NUS as well. So we were all taking our biology, our Bachelor of Science degree in biology together. And after that, he became a teacher, has been teaching for 25 years. And of course, Ezra was also he's also a former chairman of MCG, right? So in fact, he was the one who brought me into Nature Society in the Marine Conservation Group. Currently, he likes to collect old maps of the and photos of East Coast. So he finds that with that skill set, reading maps and all, it helped a lot during his NS days. So without further ado, maybe we can get Koping to start the sharing of all his pictures, and then we can start with the talk itself.
Keo, you want to mention about Osman, who can't join us today?
Yeah, apologies to all. Osman couldn't join us because of some commitment that last minute commitment that he has to do. So yeah, apologies to everybody. Koping, pass it to you.
Okay, can you see the screen that I put up?
Thanks, Koping. We can see speakers. Just want to make sure that you can see the screen as well.
Yes, I can.
Keng Soon,
okay, are we ready to go? Okay? Yep. I hope Keng Soon can see the screen as well. Okay. Never mind. Okay, guys. Thanks for joining us in this very informal conversation. The three of us, plus including Kathy and Kayao, will bring you back to Singapore, in the 1950s to 1970s, when our coastline was vastly different from what we have today. We'll talk a little bit about the fishing village, about the inshore fishing, the kelongs that used to be abundant in our coast, and then, of course, the prawn ponds. And we'll talk a little bit about, some of the islands of Singapore. Okay. Can you see the next screen? Okay, most of the photos that you'll be seeing are all which I have sort of downloaded from the National Archives Singapore, and some from SPH, essentially the Straits Times Annual. And quite a number of photos are taken from the book that I helped to publish called Singapore Waters. And if there's any photos that is taken by some of the Singaporean photographers, they would be mentioned in the photos. And I may be quoting, passages from this book called Eastern Window. It was done by this British marine biologist called F.D. Omani, who have written this book in 1962. I'll start off with some really old slide pictures that were taken in the 1900 by this German photographer called G.R. Lambert, who first started a photo studio back in 1867 in High Street. And this is a photo of Siglap. Okay, if any of the other speakers like to just come in and talk about it, you're most welcome to.
Yeah,
Okay.
I grew up in Siglap, but 1900s was way before me lah. Yeah, really.
I grew up in the 60s, so it's also way before me. But this is just to show what our coastline used to be in the 1900s. And that's how our police station looks in Changi way back in 1900s. And I think one common feature you will see is lots of coconut trees. Okay. In fact, I think in the 1900s there were vast coconut plantations that stretched from all the way from Tanjung Ru to Changi, and also in the north in places like Pasir Ris, Punggol, and some of the coconut plantation actually extended several kilometers inland. Ezra, you may want to confirm. I heard the word katong in Malay means turtle.
Yes, correct.
And in particular, I think it means the leatherback turtle.
Leatherback turtle. So if you recall, there's a school, Tanjung Katong Girls' School. You look at Tanjung Katong Girls' School, the badge. There's 4 images there. One of them is actually a turtle, and it's to represent that the school actually came from the Katong area. Yeah, you are right, Kopi. Katong is actually a turtle, leatherback turtle specifically. Yes.
Okay. Which probably mean, I think those leatherback turtle was actually swimming around our East Coast area a lot, I think. I would like to think so lah. And Pasir Panjang, that's how it looks like. And even right next to town, in this place called Telok Ayer, before it was sort of reclaimed, there was this hill called Mount Palmer, which was completely leveled off to fill up the Telok Ayer basin.
Yeah, Ping, just to add on that, this process of leveling off hills near the coast to make the reclaimed land is very common. I recall the East Coast area between Siglap Hill and Bedok South Road, for example. Like, there were lots of hills. There's a lot of mounds. And I know that it would to systematically flatten and filled up to the what's currently Marine Parade. You can see remnants of it. For example, Tanah Merah MRT. You see a hill beside Tanah MRT. So when there's landed property on the hill, they don't demolish it. But if it's just normal plantations, and then they will clear it and then flatten it up. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Just to check, is Keng Soon, are you okay listening to us? I think we seem to have lost Keng Soon.
Kopi, you just go ahead. We are working with him on the back end.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's how Pulau Brani looks like in the 1900s. There used to be a big coastal village. Apparently, the people who are staying there are the Orang Laut. And Rochor River, the former Kallang Basin. and Kampung Bugis. Quite different from the Kampung Bugis we have today. Okay, this is a topographical map of Singapore in 1966. Essentially, just to show you that, you know, beside the area around the town area and up north where the Sembawang shipyard used to be, and Jurong where still developing, our coastline was largely, you know, essentially very natural. And the rivers were not then, and there were long stretches of sandy beaches, especially in the East Coast. And also, you know, up north, you know, Pasir Ris area, and also on the West Coast. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make a comment here about this map. It's a very interesting map. Huh? You notice that the southeastern coast of Singapore is convex. That is why there's a lot of sand there. See, it's convex because the sea currents have been depositing sand in this area. That's why the land juts out into the sea. Whereas on the west coast, you see that the coastline is concave, which means that there is a scouring away of the sand, right? And this is probably because of the islands there, the Pulau Air Cawan group of islands, that's causing a constriction in the water flow, and therefore accelerates the water flow, and that is why the scouring away of the land, and that is why, in fact, it's very strange that the term Pasir Panjang would refer to this area because there's very little Pasir here, right? In fact, Pasir Panjang should be on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have friends who studied at Pasir Panjang Secondary School, which is currently the Labrador Park area. And they told me they used to skip school and smoke behind the fence. So just come out the back outside of the school, then it's a rocky shore. So he described the beach there as more of a rocky beach rather than a long.
It's rocky. It's rocky because of the erosion. You see, the sea is eating away the land. The other very interesting thing is the north coast, the Straits of Johor. I've been pondering this question for a long time. You know, what is the cause of that narrow strip of water? Is it because of seismic action? I doubt it. It was probably in ancient times a river system that flows all the way from Sumatra right through this area into the South China Sea. And the evidence of this is the cliffs, the bare earth cliffs that you see at Punggol Point, at the western tip of Pulau Ubin, and on many exposed locations along the thing. That means the water flow, the river water was eating away the land. So my suspicion is that the Straits of Johor was actually an ancient river.
That means the river actually flow from west all the way
from west to
east.
Yeah.
I think that was the time when we were part of Sunda land, I think.
That's right. So when you go to the western tip of Pulau Ubin, you will see huge granite boulders, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Which means that the boulders there were exposed due to the river currents that were eating away the land and exposing the underlying granite. So that is
I think King Sung, you're referring to the western side, on the other side, the outward bound side. There's so much rocks there that there's actually a beacon.
The outward bound side.
Outward side. Yeah, so
right. Those huge granite boulders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas on the eastern side, they tend to be mangrove also.
So the eastern side, you have the Chek Jawa, right?
Yeah.
Which is actually in a kind of a alluvial deposit area. Which is downstream. You see.
Yeah, that explains Pulau Tekong Kecil and Pulau Sejahat over at Pulau Tekong. They were rocky outcrops.
That's right. I think this is a topic that needs research, but I'm just speculating on the causes of the geographical features, you know.
And this is our coastline today. You will notice that, you know, all the coastline is basically all straightened, and all the major rivers are all dammed up, you know. And I think my next slide will show very clearly. Basically, this is the natural coastline way back in 1950s. The green would represent all the mangrove forests that we used to have. The blues are the coral reef, mostly on the southern part of Singapore. And there's also a fringing coral reef along the entire coastline of Jurong and Tuas. And of course, the yellow represent the sandy mud flats. And just take note of all the kampongs or the fishing village that's on the East Coast. Note where Mata Ikan is, because we're going to show some photos of Mata Ikan. Okay, and this is the coastline in 2002, about 18 years back. And you can see a lot of the colors are all gone. We have lost like 60% of the coral reef, so there's not much of blue. We have lost almost all the sandy mud flat, very little yellow. And I think we only have about less than 5% of the original mangrove. You know, the remnants are usually found in the north and maybe a bit, you know, in the southern islands. Just to recap, this is in 1950s and this in 2002. Okay, we'll move on to what we call the fishing village that we used to be dotted, you know, all around the coast in Singapore. This is a sketch map showing all the kampongs that we have in Singapore. A lot of these are all coastal village all around the coast. And sad to say, none of these kampong exist anymore, probably except in name.
Yeah. I mean, you can see there Kampung Kembangan. That's where I used to live. Yeah, and I still live there, but it's HDB flats now. There's an old kampung there called Pacitan, bordering the river. So most of the settlements for small kampungs actually bordered the river, but those are tidal rivers, so it's not a real stream or something. So it's tidal, so tide goes up and down. So my village was there. It was Kampung Pacitan, I remember they call it. And in the east side, most of these villages were actually settled by Javanese. So there's a strong Javanese presence over on the eastern side of Singapore. So most of the Malay kampongs on the eastern side of Singapore were Javanese. That's where Pacitan came out.
You are Javanese yourself, right, Ezra?
Yes, so my father and mother were Javanese in descent, dating back from my grandparents. So my grandparents actually came over pre-World War II to Singapore. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious about the phenomenon of Malay villages in the interior of the island, you know.
Yes.
Why is it that Malay settled interior of the islands, whereas I suspect that they are latecomers. The early Malays were all living along the coast.
Yes.
Because of fishing, you see. So if you say they are Javanese, it's very likely the Javanese came during the time when they were the labor force for the construction of the port and various other things, and that's how the Javanese arrived. And by the time they arrived, the coastal kampongs were already occupied by the earlier Malays, and therefore they had to move into the interior. That's my suspicion.
Yeah. I mean,
that also needs research. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, anecdotally, my grandmother used to stay in Kemangan.
Yeah.
She passed away, but so they live along the river. So very prominent rivers are the Teluk Kurau River, and over at Tanah Merah there's a Sungai Bedok. So where currently Simpang Bedok is, the famous Simpang Bedok, where they have all the makan areas. Right? So there's a river that goes up, and the rivers were so important. I remember Paya Lebar, there's a river that goes in Geylang all the way to Paya Lebar MRT, where there's a mosque there. I think it's called Wat Tanjong Mosque. Yeah. So in order for my grandmother to get to Wat Tanjong Mosque, the fastest way at night was actually to take a sampan and go by the river to the river, because the roads were not that developed yet. So this is how the rivers were actually quite well established as transport lines. So you can see here some of the riverine system that goes in. Yeah.
This is very interesting, because I can see that the river served as a kind of roadway, right, for people to move from the coast to the interior.
Yes, correct.
This is very different from the settlement pattern in, say, Johor, where the upstream areas were occupied by Chinese, and they were doing plantations in the upstream, plantations as well as mining, because the river mouth area was controlled by the local Malay chieftains, who then levied a tax on the Chinese upstream. And of course, Chinese were prepared to pay because they had the protection of the local chieftain, at the river mouth, and therefore they had the right of way to get into the interior. But in Singapore, it appears to me that that pattern did not happen, right?
Yeah.
So there are no kind of local Malay chieftain controlling the river mouths. Or were there? I don't know.
Okay, this is the East Coast Road in the 1950s. It used to be really a coastal road. I do have memories of it while taking bus number 2 from town to Changi Village. So you can see a bit of the seaside very near.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, right at the headland there is a pillbox, right?
Yes. Yeah. You're right,
Yeah.
Keng Soon. It was a pillbox. There's currently a sign there that says it's a heritage site for former battle.
Is that pillbox still there?
Used to be, but then this whole place is now reclaimed. I think it's
all inland
actually
now.
Bedok Camp. So and then Temasek Secondary School and the whole of the East Coast Road estates are all there. In fact, you see on the left side, you can see a slight hill. Like that's actually I think it's Q Hill, Q Gardens. There's a hill of the Q Gardens there. Yeah. So currently it's all land now. Yeah.
The tidal situation here is when it's low tide, the seawater recedes almost a kilometer out, so it's very shallow, very flat.
Yeah.
Lots of sand as well as mud flats. And then at the edge of the water there were military concrete coastal defenses, which is to prevent landing from the sea by enemy craft, right? And I remember because my family used to go there to collect, to knock for oysters growing on that concrete, on those concrete barriers.
Do they taste good?
When the tide was low. Sorry?
Do the oysters taste good?
Very, of course, very good. Those were in the early 50s. I think 52, 53, around that time.
Yeah. So along the area, that street, so East Coast Road now, if you look at if you're heading towards the east on the East Coast, on the left side, you see all the names of the roads. They are actually, there's Jalan Reminisce, Jalan Kupang, which are names of shellfish. Yeah.
Shellfish,
yeah. So Jalan Reminisce, Jalan Kupang, and all those limestone. And the names of certain trees like Jalan Pokok Serunai, which is actually a common coastal tree. So the names of the roads reflect the landscape many years back. Yeah.
Can I ask you? Can I ask you? What is the Malay name for what the Chinese call lala?
Oh, lala is reminisce. So I might be wrong.
Reminisce,
So Osman is the expert on this. So reminisce and lala is lala is the bigger one. There's a smaller one.
Yeah, it's a
I
bigger
think
one. Yeah.
Yeah. So the smaller one is reminisce. The bigger one,
Yes.
lala, I can't remember the name. But there's a specific Malay.
Reminisce the shell has got some kind of a pattern on it, right? Some kind
Yes,
of
correct.
marking.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas the lala used to be completely white.
Yes, right. And they are
And
found
the
on
shell
sandy
was much
shores.
thicker. The shell was much thicker.
So kupang is another one. Kupang is not oyster. Kupang is
Mussel.
mussels. Yes, mussels. So
Yeah,
mussels.
the green mussel.
One. So there's a lot.
Mytilus. Yeah, mytilus.
Yes. So kupang.
You guys remember Kampong Amber in Katong?
Yes.
It used to be between East Coast Road and Amber Road.
Yes.
It used to be a village for the Malays and the Peranakan. And basically the Kampong was there until the 1970s. And this is the coast of Kampong Amber.
Yeah, and Chinese swimming club was there. Yeah.
Yeah. Present round about the Chinese swimming club. Yeah. But
no more there. I recall. Yeah.
You see mangrove growing on the sandy beaches, which is nice.
I remember the old swimming pool at Katong Park. There's a place called Katong Park when I was a young boy. My parents. So Katong Park had a swimming pool, which actually open water swimming pool. They had pillars that goes out, and then and then Chinese swimming club was just behind. So that's
they call it a paga, right? Paga.
Paga, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
This is a picture of East Coast, undated, but I don't know which location would that be. But judging from the amount of coconut trees in the background, I think this will be a very early photos, probably taken before the 1930s. And this is Tanjong Ru, used to be like, the singing workshop for wooden boats.
Yeah. Tanjong means a cape, by the way. So Tanjong Cape, and Ru is actually casuarina tree. So it used to be a whole row of casuarina trees over there, as I recall.
And photo taken by this well-known photographer, Lok Hong Seng, of a typical low tide where the mud flat or the sandy beaches actually goes a few hundred meters offshore.
That looks like Pengarang Hill on the distance.
Yeah, I think correct. You look in distance from Changi Point or Pulau Tekong across to Malaysia, this hill is very prominent. It's Pengarang Hill. So it's probably in Changi. Yeah.
Actually, when I used to sail up to East Coast, on the way back, you can see the two hills. You see the Bukit Bintang on Bintang Island and Pengarang Hill. And you know that when you sail right in between them, my suspicion is that is really Lung Yaman. That is the gate to the Straits of Singapore.
Oh, the Dragon's Tooth instead. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you approach Pengarang, there's a place called Tanjong Dato, just south of what's that town? Forget the name. And it's very interesting because when I visited that hill, on top of the hill is a shrine with Chen He and Dato Kong. Okay. And then at the base of the hill are lots of Chinese graves. So my suspicion is that the Chinese fleet, when they came down, they anchored there, took water there, waited there until the tide turned before they went into the Singapore Straits, in order to avoid the danger of the currents that may drift them onto the reefs. So they had to wait for good tidal conditions, and that was therefore the waiting point. And so over the hundreds of years, the sailors that died were buried there. See, so again, this is a research project.
You're going to rewrite the history of Singapore, man.
No, this is crucial because I think I think the idea that that Lung Yamen is in Keppel Harbour is absolutely wrong, because imagine sailing a 150-foot junk through a narrow waterway there with strong currents. I think that's a crazy idea, right? So Sir Roland Bradel, who called that Lung Yamen, is absolutely wrong. Of course, there's the other theory that Lung Yamen is in fact south of the Riau group, right? Towards the last islands, where there is a mountain with twin peaks, right? And one of the peaks have broken off. So that is the other theory, that Lung Yamen is there. But my theory is that Lung Yamen is the two hills between Bukit Bintang and Pengarang.
Yeah.
Okay, we move on. I mean, naturally, because of our kind of coastline, there used to be, lots of fishermen working along the coast. And apparently, I read somewhere that estimated about 5,000 people who fish for a living, of which 2/3 are Chinese. And there's only a record of 6 Indian fishermen in total. That's surprisingly.
Yeah, and in those days when we went to visit the Kelongs, most of the Kelong people were Teochew.
Yeah, this one, I think Osman will be very familiar. You see the nets that they carry, right? So when I was a boy, I used to go down to Osman's. He can't be here, he place. And he would actually show me how he used the nets. And there's actually a wooden structure with a V with a net and that. So yeah. So yeah.
Oh, the boat on the top left-hand corner is the beach seine boat. There would be 5, 2 on each side rowing, and 1 steersman at the back. Sometimes there were 3 on each side, so 6 and 6 plus 1, 7. So it was either 5 or 7. And these are Teochew guys who would be operating along the coast. They will do a circle and then drop their nets, and then beach the boat and come onto the shore and pull the nets in and collect the fish. So that was the method of fishing, but only applied where there are lots of sandbank, because otherwise the nets will get caught.
I don't know whether it is the original Bedok Jetty. Could be.
Actually, the Bedok Jetty, current Bedok Jetty, actually built by the military. Yeah, it was actually a SAF built structure to facilitate some stuff which I think they won't reveal. Yeah, just a Bedok camp was built. So.
Okay, more photos of fishermen coming back from their catch.
These are nice photos, Koping. Yeah.
Yeah, by this guy Lim Kwang Ling, who is I don't know whether it's professional, but he is. I bought his book, and all these are taken from his book. And it's always wonderful to see fishermen coming back. I remember, just the excitement when they come back with the catch, and you could actually buy it off directly from them.
Yes, correct. I recall doing that with my dad. He would take me on his scooter, and we would go down to the Marine Parade beach. Even after it was reclaimed, then fishermen would come back, and then they would just beach up, and then they see lots of people coming, and then they just sell directly. Yeah.
Maybe for the listener, Ezra, that is the famous Singapore, porter master, Iskandar Jalil. Did I pronounce his name correctly?
Yeah, but let's not talk about him now. Let's talk about the Marine Coastal Group. Yeah.
Okay, they were just selling off the beach and in some of these Katong markets and all.
Yeah. So the top left scene, the top left corner, you see that's the boat with the many kids huddled around. Yeah, I used to do that. as well with my dad on the motorbike, and they will do. You buy food direct, fish direct from the guy there. Yeah.
Okay, this is Pasir Panjang. And of course, in Pasir Panjang, you know, a popular sport is jong and collet raising. Collet are the boats you see on the bottom pictures. These are basically sampan, but modified for sailing. Typical collet race. And this is a jong, which is, you know, a small model Malay sailing craft.
Do you remember we met this guy, I think Muhammad Ibrahim, in Southwest Johor?
Yeah.
He told me that he was originally living in Pulau Air Cawan.
Okay.
And they were all displaced because of the reclamation. And many of the, in fact, all the Malay families that were living in the southern islands were rehoused in West Coast HDB housing.
Yep.
And Muhammad did not like it at all. So he actually migrated to Johor and continued his jong hobby. And that whole area in Southwest Johor, you know, full of jong enthusiasts. Yeah. So the tradition carries on there, as well as in Pulau Belakang Panjang, in next to Batam. So every August 31st, was it? No, August 17th, there will be a jong race in Pulau in that island. Yeah.
So interesting fact. So I used to be a center manager at Labrador Adventure Center, which is the previous Pasir Panjang. And beside it, there's actually a primary school called Batu Belaya Primary School. And the Batu Belaya Primary School batch is actually a batch of a coral reef and a jong. Yeah, so it's very interesting. Yeah, you see a coral reef and a jong. Yeah, correct. So this is very interesting fact. Pasir Panjang Secondary School batch was fish, 3 fishes. So it's quite interesting history there. Yeah, how the school batch reflects where they are located.
Okay, we'll come back to Mata Ikan. These are pictures of kids, you know, collecting seaweeds, apparently to feed the pigs and the poultry back in their farm. And this is Mata Ikan. Okay, and this is, I think Keng Soon would know this quite well because he frequents this place.
This is part of the collecting of the seashells to burn and make a kapo for house painting houses with the kapo. So this area had a lot of seashells. Yeah.
Must be cockles, kerang. They call it kerang.
Which testify how rich our coast used to be in terms of marine life.
This is the making of the burning of the seashells to make the kapo. There you are, the kilns,
And usually once they burn it, they sort of crush it and make it into some kind of a paste, right?
Yeah, it is becomes a kind of a dry powder, and then they have to slick it with water, which turns it into a paste, right? Which is then put into little wooden containers, and the contractors will buy it from them and use it for house painting.
Okay, this is a picture of Tuas just before it got reclaimed. I think this is the last remaining village house in Tuas. Okay, we move on to inshore fishing. A common sight you see along the East Coast is people using deep net. I think the Malay word is what, sao?
Sao, yeah. So this is called sao, and I remember Osman showing me how to use one. Yeah. So this is actually a V-shaped two poles that he used, and there's a net in between, and like how a whale would hunt for krill. I guess you just scoop it up. And then you will just collect it at the end. It will be a funnel all the way to himself. Then he carry a basket behind his back, and he collect the fish and put it in there.
No, the basket is floating. The basket is floating.
It's floating beside. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I recall doing that. Yeah. So I had a chance to do it a few times. Yeah. So quite happy that I could do it.
And the tip of the two booms is a coconut shell, coconut husk, which is used as a skid to skid over the mud, right? And the kind of the catch would be, baby prawns.
Yes.
What do you call them?
Garagu or chinchaluk. Garagu.
Yeah,
so very small fine shrimp or krill that they used to make the chinchaluk. Yeah.
Yeah. In Singapore, it's made into chinchalo, is it?
Yes.
Or in belacan. I don't think
both.
they made belacan in Singapore, did they?
I mean, they used to make chinchaluk belacan, but now not so. I guess everything moved up to Malaysia.
Because most of the belacan comes from Malacca, right?
Yes, correct. So, Malacca, the whole west coast of Peninsula Malaysia is all mud flats that goes forward. So, I guess the environment or the landscape in eastern side of Peninsula Malaysia is very similar to the eastern side. It's the western side of Peninsula Malaysia, similar to what East Coast is now.
Yeah.
This is not Sri Lanka, but it's Kranji. Sri Lanka, I think the fishermen stand on one wooden pole, right? Here they make it in a tripod so they could sit and fish.
How ironic that this is the image of the Singapore elite system that they call Sangha.
And cast netting was also very prominent as one of the fishing methods.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I remember doing this. You had to throw it, and it's quite heavy because the net is actually very heavy because they put weights on the circumference of the net. So if you throw it, you will drop, and then you slowly pull, you will drag the fish in or whatever you catch in. Yeah. Okay.
Small picture of cast netting.
The boat is interesting, The boat is a Chinese boat with the twin the flat bow and two prows at the back. Okay. And the rowing system, I think the rowing system is I think originally Chinese, where the two oars, you row facing forward, you see the guy behind there rowing, you row facing forward, and the two oars cross, right? And you need to be careful that they do not kind of tangle each other, right? That means one oar has to be slightly forward of the other oar, and then you lean forward, and therefore propels the oar backwards, and that gives you the thrust to move the boat forward. So this is a very, very Chinese thing, And interestingly, when I saw this system, it is repeated in Venice. The Venetian boats, they use the same method, but it's a single oar, right? With a very elaborately carved upright, what do you call it? Stanchion.
Wow. Yeah.
For the oar, right? But because you row only on one side of the boat will tend to turn. Let's say you're rowing on the right side, it will tend to turn to the left. Okay. But because the Chinese have double oar, the boat will be in total control. That is why the interesting thing is that innovation in the Venetian boat, the hull of the boat is asymmetrical, which compensates for the drift to one side, right? So the boat is slightly more bulbous on one side than the other, so that it will self-correct because of the single oar system. This is to me, a very interesting innovation.
Okay,
This is the beach
string
scene.
net fishing.
Yeah,
They call
beach
it
scene.
bukat, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, we all would go down to the beach to help pull, and then the fishermen will give us a few.
Yeah. I think
So
most of the
this is
string
a
net fishing.
This is a
Yeah.
5-man boat.
Mm. I think most of the string net fishermen are all Chinese, I think.
Yeah. The Teochew fellas.
Mm. Okay. The other very common method of fishing, especially for the fishermen in the southern islands, is using bubu or traps. These are made of bamboo or cane. So these are primarily for catching crab. And for fishers, I think they use wire net nowadays.
These are called bubus. Yeah.
Bubus, yeah. And some of my friends actually collected it illegally. The fishermen would not like it.
Oh, that's a
I
big.
thought,
That's
I
a
thought it's
beautiful
okay.
coral trout there. Yeah.
It's okay to pick up the bubu and harvest the fish as long as you return back the bubu in the original place.
I don't know, man. I mean, if you are the owner of the bubu, they may not like it because you are actually robbing them of their collection. They probably leave the bubu there for 1 week. And then, when they come back later and find that it's empty, they'll get very angry, man. And you still find, if you go to West Coast Park, you still can find people still making bubu, like the one on the bottom picture.
It's quite huge, the bubu on the left. It's like a
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a bubu or it's just for
3-meter
for
hot.
cooking pan. Yeah.
It's interesting, the picture on the top right is a Chinese house,
Mm.
and yet there is a Malay guy sitting there. So I think there was a lot of good relations between the Chinese and Malays in the kampong areas, And this is something I want to ask about the type of fish that is collected. The Malay prefer certain kind of fish, Chinese prefer certain kind of fish, and they do not really contradict each other. So I think that's how they can get along. Is that correct?
The Malays, they prefer the small fish. What you see, the nasi lemak fish, that small ikan selah, ikan kembung, ikan cincaru, these are the more smaller fish.
Kuning,
kuning selah kuning. The Chinese prefer the milk fish, I think, rabbit fish or something like that.
Krapu, krapu is not. Malays are not very fond of krapu, is it?
Yeah.
Krapu is quite. I mean, I don't know whether they're not fond of it, but it's quite a hard fish to catch. Yeah, it's something that you need to have skill and knowledge to catch. Yeah,
for example, the earlier picture of the two guys looking into the bubu, there was a fairly large coral trout. Yeah, this picture.
Yeah, the one right in the
coral
middle.
trout is there, right? Do the Malays like coral trout? I don't think so, no.
No, we sell the. I mean, no, let's say nowadays Malays we eat what Chinese eat, so I guess at a barbecue place. But I don't recall as a young boy eating crab in the
That's right.
70s. Yes, correct. I don't recall.
I'm not sure whether the taste for different kind of fish came about because of the competition between Malay and Chinese fishermen, or it was a natural preference that allowed for the Chinese and Malay fishermen to coexist. So this is another research question.
How many research projects have you got already, man?
Yeah,
I think we are running out of time, so we move on to kelongs. Way back in the 1960s, we used to have like 300 over kelongs that sort of, encircle the entire Singapore. And I think the most dense was probably in the East Coast and the northeastern coast of Singapore. And you have quite a bit also on the southwestern part of Singapore.
The interesting thing about this picture is that the number of kelongs on the east coast is a lot more, and they are much closer to each other than on the west
quite
coast.
dense, yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So why is that? Why is that the case? Is it because the fishing is much better in the east coast than the west coast?
I would think is the kind of, you know, the profile of the slope, you know, the coast. I think kelong has to be built on shallow water. So generally the east coast part is, you know, the profile suits the installation of the kelongs. I think that's what I would say.
But the kelongs are mainly Chinese owned.
Yeah, mainly Chinese.
And yet the coastal fishing villages are Malay owned, you see. So what is the relationship? Another research project.
I don't know. All I know is for me as experience at kelongs are bittersweet lah. I mean, I used to sail quite a bit, and especially in the between Pulau Ubin and Changi, wow, there's so many kelongs. Your keel and your rudder will get stuck in stuff. It's quite a nightmare for sailors.
And even off Seletar, this is taken from a helicopter. I don't know how many kelongs you can count there, at least 5.
The long stick usually goes towards the shallower seabed, right? Whereas the kelong house is on the deeper part of the sea. Yeah. So the idea is, I guess the idea is then the fish which are swimming along the coast will be guided by the stakes into the trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recall we were told as you were kayaking, never kayak under a kelong. Because the toilet would drop into the sea.
I once got stuck while doing sailing on the dinghy into one of those kelong stakes. And the fisherman was shouting at me, you know, telling me where the wind direction was coming from and all. It was damn bloody malu, man.
You stay away from kelong.
The fishermen are always very, very friendly, you know.
Yeah.
And in those days, we could just simply go on board, like, very easily, and they are very hospitable. And if you bring them a big chunk of pork, they will love it, and they will cook for you and share stories with you and everything. You know, it's a very nice, hospitality. Yeah.
I like to read an excerpt of what the late Ivan Poloni recalled in 1966 about his visit to a kelong, about kelong catch. And, you know, that's why he say, when the net is hauled right up, the fish collected at the center, a shimmering mass of quicksilver against the black net. As more than 50 different kinds of fish are caught, ranging from tiny ikan bilis to huge stingrays. There are various croakers and grunters with occasional flying fish or a hammerhead shark, sometimes with a remora or suckerfish, still clinging to it. This is what Ivan Poloni says in 1966.
Yeah. The other thing is that the fishermen will not lower the net to catch fish when it is full moon, because there will be no fish. When there is no moon or new moon, the light will attract the plankton and the zooplankton, and then a food chain will develop, and the fish will all come in. The small fish will be eaten by the bigger fish, and so on and so forth. So that's where they really get the good catch. But during the full moon, all the zooplankton is dispersed over the entire sea surface, and therefore you will have no catch. So those are the off days for the kelong people.
Yeah.
Okay.
FYI, the kelongs are made of the wood of a particular tree. It's not actually a tree; it's actually a palm called, I think, the nibong.
Nibong.
Yeah. So a nibong is a type of palm. Yeah, so I mean, I'm a botanist by training. So Southeast Asia has very few species of palms compared to South America, but we have the most valuable type of palms. You know, we got like a nibong, rattan, you know. So all the good palms are found in Southeast Asia. So nibong is a very waterproof, water resistant that doesn't rot. So they use it to make kelongs.
It has a very tough surrounding system, but the center is very porous. So rainwater will go into the top, through the top, and rot the nibong from the inside. That is why when nibong became much more difficult to get, the kelong owners would put plastic caps on top of the nibong stakes to keep the rainwater out, so that the nibong will last longer, you know. But from these pictures, you can see, obviously, the supply of nibong was plentiful, and therefore, you know, they could be easily replaced, right? Placing the nibong is a very interesting process, where you have one diver that goes right down to put the tip of the nibong in the right place, and then they would tie 2 crossbars on the upper sections, and either 2 or 3 or 4 people would jump on it and drive, like pile driving, you know, to drive the nibong into the sand or mud, and that's how they actually construct the kelong.
Okay, we shall move on to prawn ponds, which is another, you know, prominent feature along our coast. Okay, this, I think the highest concentration of prawn ponds is basically along the west coast, along, you know, the Sungai Pandan, Sungai Jurong area. And in this photo, you can see, you know, the West Coast Road slicing through a series of prawn ponds. It's another view of West Coast. This is in Jurong.
It's interesting that the prawn ponds are always where the mangroves are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I think that the mangrove are the seeds and the nursery of all the prawn larvae and all.
Yeah, right. And
can I take? Sorry to interrupt. Can I take a look at the prawn farm at West Coast and Jurong again? Yeah. Yeah, my grandfather had prawn farms in the Jurong River and the West Coast area and the Pandan River. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was mostly the Hokkien people, right? Hokkien, the Hokkien, the people from Ansi. Yeah, they had all these prawn farm from West Coast up to Jurong River. And it was a lucrative business at that time. Yeah.
I think prawn ponds was introduced to Singapore in the 1900s by the Chinese.
Yes. Yeah. It's not a Malay community thing to have a prawn farm.
Okay. Yeah. This is a topo map showing, you know, the location of all the prawn ponds, and this is Sungai Jurong. You will see all these brown line. Basically, these are the bunds, and circling, you know, the mangrove swamp. And this is Sungai Pandan, and also in Tuas area as well.
Just to share the Pandan Reservoir that you see now, right? That Pandan Reservoir area is actually a big prawn farm, actually. It was a prawn farm or cavity for the prawn farm. They enlarged it to make it into a reservoir.
Yeah. It used to be a nature reserve. It was sort of gazetted by the British, but it has since been degazetted. And also in the northeast coast, you will see, you know, lots of the prawn ponds, even in Pulau Ubin as well.
Some in Punggol.
Yeah. This is a typical picture of a prawn pond.
Actually, this method of prawn farming is actually very destructive. In fact, there was a study done on the prawn farm, this method in the Gulf of Thailand by the Thais, and they virtually destroyed the entire mangrove spawning grounds for the fisheries in the Gulf of Thailand, and as a result of which the fisheries in Gulf of Thailand is collapsed. Yeah, so now the government has put a stop to the prawn farm development. Now the other problem is that the prawn farms, okay, there are two methods in which the prawn farms are done. One is the natural method, which is kind of self-replicating. The other is intensive prawn farming. And with intensive prawn farming, the prawn farm becomes unusable after about 3 or 4 years, because the toxic sedimentation in the base of the pond makes it unlivable for aquatic animals. So they have to be abandoned. So this is what has happened in a lot of the prawn farms in the Gulf of Thailand that has destroyed the fisheries.
Okay, we got to move on. We will just show some pictures of some offshore islands. This is a map that shows all the old names of, the islands, Pulau this, Pulau that. And the whole cluster of this on the southwestern side is now part of Jurong Island. Okay, this Pulau Ubin in the 1950s. Look quite similar. Kampung Selabin in Pulau Tekong, 1970s.
Yeah, Pulau Tekong, I recall as a young boy in the 70s, you can take a bumboat from Changi Point to go to Pulau Tekong as a civilian and enjoy the beaches there. Now it's all military, so you can't go there anymore. Yeah, so I recall this sort of scenes. Yeah, I recall.
I was invited to a wedding on Pulau Tekong, and it was very interesting because the kampong was called Kampong Pahang. And I asked them, why is it called Pahang? They say, oh, we were originally from Pahang.
Wow.
And the whole village migrated down to escape the war in Pahang. Remember, there was a Malay leader called what's the name now? I can't remember. Who was fighting the British? Yeah, and so there was a lot of skirmishes. So this whole group migrated down to Singapore. This is 19th century, 19th century. Yeah.
Okay. St. John Lazarus Island, there used to be a thriving, fishing village there. And if you go, when you go there in the 50s and 60s, they would be selling corals. Plenty of them all around the islands. And even Kusu Island, you can always pick up, pieces of corals as souvenirs.
I noticed the photos, there are no fat people. Everybody was very slim then.
Pulau Sudong was the center of, fishing in the southern islands. All the best fishermen, the bawangs, they all from this fishing village. It's Pulau Sudong. Same thing, I think selling coral souvenirs are part of their livelihood. I think it's wonderful to be a child, man, in the Southern Islands back then. Pulau Sikin, which is now part of the Semakau landfill.
Semakau landfill.
I think it's the last village in the southern island to be, relocated. Pulau Senang used to be an island for prisoners. And this is, the last couple of slides. This is a big sawfish that was caught in Pasir Panjang. I think this appeared in the Straits Times. A whale shark that was taken off from a kelong. In fact, when the kelong owners, caught this, they actually called up the marine police. And those days, I think nobody knows that the whale shark was harmless. And I read report that the police actually empty a whole revolver of bullets into the whale shark to make sure it's dead before they sort of, bring it on board. And occasionally, there's always a dead dugong that wash up on our shore, especially along Changi coast. And this is the Johor Causeway. Maybe Keng Soon, you have very good experience here, man.
Johor Causeway, yeah, it's made of giant granite blocks, mainly from Pulau Ubin. That's why the Pulau Ubin granite quarries are on the coast, so they could load the blocks onto boats and then drop it to form the causeway. So there are two outer layers of giant blocks. The center of the causeway is filled with sand. So during the, say, northeast monsoon, the water level on the eastern side is higher than the water level on the western side. So the water gets pushed through by the water pressure, and therefore on the western side you have a clear bulb of water. You could see 20 meters, right? The visibility was fantastic, and then there were lots of big fish that we used to shoot fish there during when we look at the tide tables that the time was suitable. We would go and shoot fish there, and we didn't realize that all of us got hepatitis because of the rocks were full of rats, right? So we all contracted hepatitis A.
Oh.
Yeah, and then there were several tunnels. The water would flow through those tunnels, and on one occasion I was diving at one of the tunnel mouth because I know that the big fish would be waiting at the tunnel mouth for small fish to come through and they will eat them. And I saw these two huge groupers about the size of a Volkswagen. Yeah, and tried to shoot them, but no chance. They just went away. Yeah. But all these spearfishing things were inspired by the stories that were written in the Free Press. In those days, the Straits Times had another paper called the Free Press. And the Free Press had stories written by RAF people who were doing spearfishing in Pulau Ubin. So I got inspired by that and took up spearfishing. Yeah. That's the kind of size. Yeah. So that's me and Tony. Yeah.
You guys were making your own spear gun then, right?
Yeah. This was I think somewhere in Terengganu. Yeah.
Okay, my second
Tony
last
Tan,
slide.
eh?
Yeah.
Oh.
Tony Tan, the national
Yeah.
sailing coach.
Sailing coach. Yeah.
Okay, this is my second last slide. Sort of a part. I wish we could have left a few of these fishing village intact, Okay.
In fact, the Malays that were displaced would love to go back there, no?
Yep.
In fact, there was a story of a couple, an old couple. They went back to Pulau Sudong and lived there surreptitiously. And then they were caught by the Marine Police, and then sadly they were sent back. But they reported that they had a fine time.
Okay, guys, I've finished my photo, so I don't know. We can go into Q&A now.
Okay, thanks so much, Popeng, King Soon, and Ezra for your really enlightening and very enthralling session. I learned so much, and I think I was really taken by the sawfish image. Like, oh, we can't even find sawfishes in most parts of the world anymore today. So there were quite a few questions that came in. Yeah, so maybe I will. I'll start with BB's first question. So she asked, did we get the name Katong because there were leatherback turtles in the area?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yes, it's been Katong is a leatherback turtle, the name. So Tanjung Katong Girls' School had a leatherback turtle. Yeah. In fact, I might do a research on the origin of why school badges are like so, you know. So you can actually find the history of the place from the school badges that schools had then. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, one of the reasons why there were leatherback turtles there is because there was a lot of seagrass that grew in that area. So the turtles will come and feed off the grass, right? That's because of the sandy and muddy underwater conditions, right? Favorable for seagrass. Yeah.
I think, you know, in recent time, there are also sighting of horse-billed turtle nesting along the East Coast Beach as well.
Yeah.
And Hong Park has been collecting the eggs and relocating them to Sister Island as a safe place. So I think the turtles are still hanging around to come up to the beach to lay eggs.
Thank you. Okay, then there's a question by David. He asks, is there any idea where the Brani residents were resettled?
I have no idea.
I have no idea. But I know that in the Teluk Air area, there were very prominent Malay kampungs there. Yeah, I think there's quite a few books written on some of the Malay kampungs at the Teluk Air area. And yeah, I think most of them went over to the Teluk area, which is now Teluk Blangah Estate.
I think Teluk Blangah is more likely. Yeah.
Teluk Blangah, yeah, Radin Mas. Yeah, there's a Radin Mas community.
Yeah.
That actually were islanders that actually moved and formed the Radin Mas community. So
I know a lot of the people from the southern islands, like, you know, Sudongs and Semakau, they were all staying in West Coast.
In fact, I think quite a lot of the people living in Pulau Brani were orang what you call it? Orang Laut, yeah. Right. And they were resettled by the British along Johor on the southwest corner of Johor. Yes.
Yeah. Near Pontian there, I guess.
Yeah, Pontian and all those places. Yeah.
Okay, so there's another question by BB. Like, what were the Chinese mining? Was it tin that the Chinese were mining?
Chinese mining?
Sorry, I can't remember which picture it was that she was making reference to, but she was asking about tin mining.
Not tin mining. I think the picture shows that they were collecting seashells off the coast.
Right.
And bringing the seashells to be burned and to make into lime wash. There's no tin mining here in Singapore.
No.
Yeah, why is it called Bukit Timah? Why is Bukit Timah called Bukit Timah?
Timah is tin. But I think Bukit Timah was mainly granite. They're quarrying stones there. That's the main.
Yeah.
Oh, she says it's the picture before the seashell.
What?
She says it's the picture before the seashells.
No, that was shell mining. I think.
Okay, and there's a question by Kay. It was asked whether Koping could share the book title containing the photos because they really like the photos. I think there are quite a few people who are asking.
The photographer, yeah. I would like to buy that book as well.
It's Lin Kwang Lin. Just give me 1 minute, I'll get a book and I flash it.
Okay.
We can email to everyone, you know, once we get the name of the title of the book and the publisher.
Can you all see?
Ah, yeah. Oh, wow.
I think it's still available for sale. It's not just photograph of the coast, but you know, you have pictures of Potong Pasir, you have pictures of, you know, Chinatown and places like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
It'll
so
be
the
sold
next
out
question.
soon.
Yeah, I think so too. There was another question by BB as well. Can you explain about our fish biodiversity now? Has it been reduced considerably since these photos were taken? I'm pretty sure the answer is yes.
I don't know. I leave it to KL.
I think diversity-wise, it's a bit difficult to determine whether there's a change there, because there wasn't a baseline done the last time, right? So it's difficult to compare, like, you know, in a scientific manner. But what I do think is that the quantity probably has dropped. So there are some certain animals we don't get to see them that often. Probably, you know, they are so rare now. They may be there, but they are so rare, and with our visibility, we don't really see them. So I would say that it's difficult to determine whether we have dropped in biodiversity or not in that sense. But quantity-wise, I would say yes, we have dropped. It's probably decreased by quite a little bit.
You know,
Okay.
we used to have a lot of fishermen catching the ikan parang on the east coast, right?
Yeah.
I wonder what has happened to that, because we don't see ikan parang much on the menu these days, you know,
Yeah.
right?
I recall they've been used to make fish balls, I think. Yeah, they used to scrape
You
ikan
go to
parang.
market, you don't see ikan parang anymore.
Saito, is it?
Saito lah.
Yeah. I was at Bedok Jetty yesterday, and actually they fish up one Saito there yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they are still around, I think, but I think it's not so common now.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so I wasn't sure if that was a question or was meant to be tongue-in-cheek, but David was asking maybe y'all can do a practical lesson on cast fishing.
I mean, Osman will be the man for it.
Yes.
But I think maybe we'll talk to Osman later and see whether he can facilitate. There are still people who do those cast fishing as well as the two pole thing. There are still people as a hobby, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
so there's
we
another
check.
question. Okay, sorry. Yeah, there's another question by BB. So it was asked, when Singapore urbanized in the 1960s, what happened to the fishermen? Like, did they lose their jobs or did they have to change vocation? Were they displaced?
I think as far as I know, most of them will definitely have to lose. They can't continue fishing anymore. So they probably move on to other occupation. They were forced to go into HDBs. But having said that, I think there's still some diehards that still go back to their old fishing ground, and they do still fish by, I don't know, hand lines and a bit of casting and all. So I think eventually that generation has sort of passed. So the younger one, I think they are into high-tech angling more than anything else. And if they really want to fish, then they go over to Malaysia lah. There's still a lot of Kelongs fishing village and location where you can do the traditional fishing.
I think there's still a lot of hobby fishing.
Yes, always. East Coast Park, there's a boat shed. Actually, there's about usually 30 to 40 boats privately owned that they berth on the beach, and it's managed by MParks and MPA, and their licenses. I think so. There's still a number of fishermen. I doubt whether they're professional, but we hobbyists still. That still do. Yeah.
So I guess it links also to the question about how the existing fishermen at West Coast Beach today, like, are you able to give some comments about those fishermen?
I don't know. I still find some of them still, during the weekends especially, making, the wire net boo-boo. and they still go out to do boo-boo fishing. So boo-boo fishing is still going on, but not in a big way. But I think it's more recreational than, making a living out of it.
Yeah, West Coast Park has another boat yard where fishermen keep their boat quite cheaply. Then they pull up on shore and then they moor. It's quite adjacent to West Coast Park. I think they are hobbies. I know some friends who actually have boats there and they actually drop boo-boos. Apparently you can't drop boo-boo anyhow. You have to apply for a permit to drop a boo-boo. But you still can still apply for a permit to drop a boo-boo.
Okay, and there's a question from David. Were waters from the South China Sea cleaner?
I think that the question was asked in the context that why on the East Coast side there are more kelongs than on the West Coast side.
Yeah.
I think the answer is what Kok Peng says. The profile of the seabed facilitates more kelongs to be made easier, I guess. The West Coast side tend to be, like King Soon said, the currents are very strong. So it's very hard to erect kelong, I guess. But the East Coast side is quite easy to erect kelongs. More kelongs over there. I think the profile of the seabed plays a big part.
Thank you. And I think there's a question from Richard. Are there still tunnels below the present causeway?
I think the tunnels are still there, but I think apparently they are all mostly choked up. A few tunnels were sort of destroyed during the Second World War when the British sort of dynamited the middle part of the causeway. And when they rebuilt the causeway, I don't think they bothered to put back some of the channel. So I think by and large, the channel is sort of clogged up. So not much of flow. So which basically leads to a lot of stagnant water on both sides of the causeway, adjacent to the causeway.
And I think there's one last question. In one of the old maps of the East, was there a quarry on the mainland? Was it a granite quarry?
On the East.
So far I know on
I
the
don't
East,
think so.
the main quarry on the East is actually Pulau Ubin.
Yeah.
But I know in the interior, I'm an interior kind of guy from the coast, 2 kilometers in, that's where I live. But interior, there are a lot of farms. In fact, the Bedok Reservoir right now. So Bedok Reservoir right now formerly was lots of fishing ponds. And the fishing ponds are actually like a stagnant area of water that they drain out all the way to Bedok Canal that leads out to where Tanah Merah is right now. So you can see a big canal that goes there. So it was a series of small fishing ponds that joined together. And like what one of the participants already mentioned, Pandan Reservoir, right, was a collection of prawn farms. So Bedok Reservoir is actually a collection of freshwater ponds that people used to fish in, and they made into a big reservoir. That I know, that I've seen it myself, and I actually walked there. So before the PIE was constructed, I can actually walk all the way up to Bedok Reservoir, Kaki Bukit area, up to Paya Lebar Air Base. That's it now. Yeah.
Okay, and maybe we'll close off with this last question. Sorry, let me just scroll a bit. By Richard. Besides East and West Coast, there are still some small pockets of fishermen community at Changi Point and Seletar. Is that right?
Changi Point, I know there is. Where Changi Point is, there's actually a creek called Belaya Creek, where you can sail in, you can power boat in, and a lot of fishermen park their boats there. On the West, Seletar, I'm not sure, but I know at the West Coast and East Coast Park there are. Seletar, I'm not sure. But Changi Point, there is a very big community in Changi Point.
Maybe I just would like to say, all the photos that I show you essentially no longer exist. The fishing village, the kelongs, the prawn ponds, they no longer are there anymore. And then I think what we have is just remnants of the prawn ponds. I think you can still find remnants of it in Pulau Ubin, in Sungai Buloh, and maybe, in some parts of Kate Bongsu. But essentially what you have seen, the black and white photos, they no longer exist in Singapore. go to Malaysia, you will look for them.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much to all our speakers. Maybe for those of you who are okay with unmuting yourselves or to turn on your videos, you can give a big thank you to our awesome speakers today. Give them some reaction, some love.
Okay.
Bye. See you guys. Bye.
Hey, wait, hang on. Okay, so before we end the session, maybe we would like to talk a little bit about so the Marine Conservation Group has this monthly webinar series. The next one coming up, I think it's on I think it's 22nd of November if I'm not wrong. So feel free to check out our social media channels just to learn more about the upcoming webinars and to sign up for them. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today, guys. If you have any feedback or you have any questions for us, please feel free to drop us an email. We know that some of you, or rather most of you, want to know about the book, so we will try to send you an email, to give you more information about the book that Kopi has used.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks,
bye.
Ezra. Thanks,
Thanks, KL.
Kopi. Thanks, King. Soon.
Bye.